Hello friends and welcome to the daily current affairs discussion. So today is Thursday and we will be discussing your current affairs related to your international relations portion. So we are discussing two very important topics that are going on this week in the news. First is related to your G20 summit, a very important topic for this year as well as for next year, as the presidency of G20 will be shifting to India for 2023. We will discuss all that in detail, but this is a very crucial topic for any government examination that you are appearing for both subjective and objective type of papers. So we will be discussing this topic holistically so that you can answer any kind of question that is asked on G20, right? Then the second topic that we will be discussing today will be related to the illegal, unregulated and unreported fishing that is going on in Indian Ocean, its impact and the from the geopolitical level what is being done to combat this illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing going on in Indo-Pacific, right? So ये environmental topic तो है ही है, but international relations के perspective से भी एक important angle है इसमें that we will be discussing in this session, right? So let's begin with our first important topic, that is your G20. So in the past week you have been reading about G20 a lot, the summit that is going on in Indonesia, Bali, right? It's a very important location भी पूछी जाती है objective type of questions में कि summit कहाँ hold हुआ था. In smaller government examinations such questions are asked, so make this factual detail known to yourself. The summit in 2022, that is the present year, is is being conducted in Indonesia, Bali, right? So now what is G20? As the name suggests, G20 is the group of 20 countries as well as some organizations that is operating together, right? So G20 is group of 20 developed and emerging economies. It's a economic grouping mainly meant to deal with the issues of global economic system. पूरी दुनिया का एक इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम है, राइट? अपनी कंट्री का एक इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम है. देखिए, हर घर का एक इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम होता है, हर कंट्री का एक इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम है. ऐसे ही पूरा वर्ल्ड इज कनेक्टेड थ्रू अ इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम, राइट? Now whatever issues this entire global economic system is facing, whatever challenges it is facing, all of that will be dealt by G20, the group of developed and emerging nations, because these are the key stakeholders. These are the economies that impact this system the most, right? So that is why they sit together to discuss these common issues and present solutions for that, right? So that is what is G20, group of developed and emerging economies to discuss issues, challenges related to global economic system, right? That is what G20 is. Now the members of G20 are also very crucial, obviously can be asked in any form, in any objective type of paper. Directly members भी पूछे जा सकते हैं या in any way it can be asked, right? Now 20 members are there, from which 19 countries are there, plus one grouping, that is EU, European Union is there, right? This is not just single country, it is a union of all the major European countries combined together, right? So there are a lot of countries that are sitting in the G20 meetings. इसकी membership को याद करने की कोशिश कीजिए. At least the major members like India, the country we belong to, is obviously a member of G20. That is why we are discussing it. That is why it is significant for us, right? Then another important member is China, right? Then USA, the largest economy of the world, is obviously going to be part of the organization, right? Japan, another important and big economy of the world shares a seat at the G20, right? Then countries like Australia, Indonesia, which are the emerging economies like India, they are also the part of the grouping, Indonesia especially, right? So try to make a mental map of this, the members of this grouping. All of this will be important for you to answer the objective type of questions, right? Now, the next important aspect for us to know is how this G20 grouping came into being, how it evolved, why there was a need of organization like G20. ठीक है, G20 को सेटअप करने की ज़रूरत ही क्या पड़ी दुनिया को, that we will see, right? So see, before G20 there used to be some organizations, right? If you see, G20 came into being in 1999, right? Now before G20 we had some major organizations like G7, G8 or OECD, right? Now the issue with these organizations was that these had very micro representation, very few larger economies were present in this grouping, right? And the issue with this is it is a very big organization, everyone is part of this grouping, almost like every country is a part of this grouping. So the main focus of managing the global economy, right, managing the global economic issues that are being impacted by the major economies, the 20 major economies of the world, that was getting missed, and as a result of that it was realized that we need a grouping that has a broader membership but not a very big organization where discussions are not possible. See, जितने ज़्यादा members होंगे उतना ज़्यादा consensus build करना, discussions को hold करना बहुत difficult होगा, right? So a mid-level of organization was decided to be evolved in the form of G20, which has the largest which has the economies that have the largest impact on the global economic system. ठीक है, ये वैसी 20 economies है जो सबसे ज़्यादा economic system को impact करती हैं. अगर आज आप देखें, so these G20 countries they kind of hold 85% of the world GDP. पूरी दुनिया की अगर GDP देखें तो इन 20 economies के द्वारा ही ये 85% of the global GDP is impacted, controlled by the operations happening in these 20 economies, right? So इसी वजह से G20 as an organization का evolution हुआ, right? So there were another reasons also. There were various kind of financial crises that were going on in these emerging economies. आप देखिए 1994 में Mexican peso crisis, that means economic crisis in Mexico was witnessed, right? Then in 1997 Asian financial crisis was witnessed. Many of the Asian nations like Vietnam, like Philippines, Indonesia, all these Asian nations, they started witnessing economic crisis. इसको आप economy में detail में थोड़ा पढ़ेंगे, right? Because their economies were majorly dependent on exports, and exports at that time took a hit because of various international events that were going on at that time, right? Because of that the Asian economies could not perform very well at that time, right? So ये जो इतने फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस हो रहे थे उस टाइम पे, दे वर इम्पैक्टिंग द इंटायर वर्ल्ड. सारे वर्ल्ड में इन्फ्लेशन, अनएम्प्लॉयमेंट, ऐसी बहुत सारे इश्यूज इवॉल्व हो रहे थे, राइट? सो टू मैनेज सच फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस दैट आर इम्पैक्टिंग द इंटायर वर्ल्ड, नॉट जस्ट दीज कंट्रीज बट दे हैव अ लार्जर इम्पैक्ट, राइट? सो टू डील विद सच financial or economic crisis also this G20 was evolved, right? So that the major economies can sit together in a forum called G20 and they can solve the issues, the challenges, the financial challenges that the world is facing, right? So majorly for providing representation, जैसे हमने कहा G7, G8 जैसे forums में only the developed countries were there, जैसे US हो गया, UK हो गया, Japan हो गया, only the developed world was represented in these organizations, and the emerging economies were missing, right? Their representation was not there, and that is why to give a representation to this emerging world, to provide that representation, G20 was created. And secondly, to handle the economic crisis happening in the emerging economies that have wider global impact, right? For these two major issues, for these two major concerns, G20 as an organization was established, and 1999 में ये establish हुई, और 2008 से 2000, since 2008, when we saw the next global economic crisis, you all know that in 2008 again world witnessed the greatest, one of the greatest economic crisis, world recession was seen in 2008. So after that again the need for having a cooperative action towards global economic problems was realized. ठीक है, तब फिर से रियलाइज हुआ कि सारी कंट्रीज को इकट्ठे बैठ के जो भी इश्यूज है ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी के जो फेस कर रही है उनको डील करना है. दैट इज वाई अगेन इन 2008 इट वाज डिसाइडेड दैट annual yearly summits will be held in which the head of states or the head of governments, that means prime minister level या presidential level तक के लोग जो हैं they will be present in these summits. This just shows the level of significance that world is giving to these organization, to this organization, right? The world started to realize कि ऐसी एक organization की हमें ज़रूरत है जो ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक इश्यूज को हैंडल कर सके, और 2008 जैसे ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस या एशियन फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस जैसे इकोनॉमिक क्राइसिस को कॉम्बैट किया जा सके, राइट? दैट इज व्हाई वी अचीव्ड द समिट लेवल मीटिंग्स ऑफ G20 हैपनिंग ऑन ईयरली बेसिस, हैविंग द हेड ऑफ स्टेट्स or the head of governments, right? I hope that is clear to you why G20 came into being and how it evolved into summit level meetings, right? Now what, since G20 has been established, now what is the objective? As we have discussed, now G20 is focusing on financial management of the global economic system basically. ठीक है, पूरी ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी को मैनेज करना है, एंड फॉर दैट ऑल द कंट्रीज विल अचीव पॉलिसी कोऑर्डिनेशन बिटवीन इट्स मेंबर्स. ठीक है, जितना भी वर्ल्ड है, देखिए आप देखिए ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम को कैसे कैसे चैलेंजेस फेस कर रहे हैं. इफ आई आस्क यू, प्लीज टाइप इन द कमेंट बॉक्स, व्हाट आर द चैलेंजेस यू थिंक आर फेसिंग द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम? ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम है, राइट? इसके चैलेंजेस क्या है? कौन से ऐसे चैलेंजेस हैं जो हमारे ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम को डिस्टर्ब कर सकते हैं, डिस्टेबलाइज कर सकते हैं? रिसेशन टाइप ऑफ सिचुएशन, यस, रिसेशन कम्स बिकॉज ऑफ सम रीजंस, वो आपको बताना है. लेटेस्ट आप you just imagine the world situation at this time and try to think what is the major issue that is impacting the economies of entire world. Sri Lanka सोचिए, India सोचिए, which is that situation that is impacting the entire global economy? High inflation is right, banking industry is impacted, but what are the reasons? What is the reason that is impacting all this? What are the reasons that are bringing high inflation? What are the events? Yes, Kanu, very good. The war. You see the current Russia-Ukraine war. Because of this war, the supply of food grains has been impacted. The supply of energy material like oil, gas has been impacted, right? इस वॉर की वजह से मूवमेंट ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स, प्रोडक्शन ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स नहीं हो पा रही. यूक्रेन वन ऑफ द लार्जेस्ट सप्लायर ऑफ फूड ग्रेन्स टू द वर्ल्ड, वीट, ठीक है. ऑयल गैस लार्जेस्ट सप्लायर्स ऑफ द वर्ल्ड, दिस रशिया एंड यूक्रेन. बिकॉज ऑफ द वॉर दिस सप्लाई हैज बीन इम्पैक्टेड. अब जब चीज़ों की सप्लाई कम है, डिमांड ज़्यादा है, उससे क्या होगा? प्राइस ऑफ दैट प्रोडक्ट विल इंक्रीज. प्राइस इंक्रीजेस because supply has been limited, right? Price increase का मतलब है inflation, right? तो global economic system के challenges में one latest challenge that you are seeing is Russia-Ukraine war. It will impact the economy of the world because it is restricting the supply of the products, right? इस तरीके के चैलेंजेस हैं ग्लोबल इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम में. यस संभव, वेरी राइट. सेकंड चैलेंज यू कैन सी इज क्लाइमेट चेंज. हाउ इज क्लाइमेट चेंज अ चैलेंज टू इकोनॉमिक सिस्टम्स? हाउ इज क्लाइमेट चेंज अ चैलेंज? अब देखिए क्लाइमेट चेंज हो रहा है. लेट्स जस्ट टेक एन एग्जांपल. क्लाइमेट चेंज ऑल्सो मीन्स इंक्रीजिंग टेम्परेचर्स. नाउ व्हेन द टेम्परेचर्स आर इंक्रीजिंग, that means it will impact your agriculture. एक एग्जाम्पल ले रहे हैं, इसके बहुत सारे impacts हैं. We are just taking one example to understand how climate change is a challenge to the global economic system, right? So increasing temperature will increase the number of droughts, the intensity of droughts that are coming up, ठीक है. तो that means agricultural production will be impacted. That means income of farmers will be impacted. That means economy will get impacted, right? Again it will create disturbances in the economic system of the countries and the entire world, right? So इस तरीके से there are various issues like war. Whenever war is there, it will impact the economic systems. Whenever climate challenges are there, it will impact the economic systems. Whenever there is corruption, whenever there is money laundering, all of these events will also impact your global economic system. Corruption से क्या होता है? पैसा कुछ लोगों की जेबों में जाता रहता है. Majority of your population will be poor, deprived, right? So inequality will rise, right? कुछ लोग बहुत अमीर होते जाएंगे, कुछ लोग गरीब रह जाएंगे. Now these गरीब people, they have the reason to commit crime, right? Now they do not have money to eat food. What will they do? They'll be left with only one option, that is to steal food, right? The crime levels in the countries, in the regions will rise, and rising crime is not good for economic health of any country, right? So आप देखिए directly, indirectly, there are many issues that challenge the global economic systems. And to manage all these issues, we are having organization like G20, जहाँ countries, they will try to make such policies in which they can handle all these issues with cooperating with each other. अब क्लाइमेट चेंज किसी एक कंट्री के काम करने से तो नहीं रुकेगा. जब पूरा वर्ल्ड, when all the countries of the world will join their hands together to prevent climate change, that is when we will be successful. सिर्फ एक कंट्री एक्ट कर सकती है क्लाइमेट चेंज पे? नहीं, right? So that is why if we want stable economy, we want to combat climate change. And if we want to combat climate change, we want coordination in the policies of all the countries, all the major countries of the world. And that is where G20 intends to operate. Policy coordination between its members in order to achieve global economic stability. ठीक है? Global economic stability लाने के लिए सारे members इकट्ठे होके they will coordinate their policies on various issues that provide a challenge to the global economy, right? Like climate change, like corruption, like money laundering, like war, right? सो इस टाइप के हर इश्यूज पे पॉलिसी कोऑर्डिनेशन will be achieved by G20. That is its very first objective, right? Yes, you can consider terrorism, desertification, right? On all these issues G20 intends to work together, right? So that is the first objective, right? अब कुछ regulations, rules and regulations भी चाहिए world economy के लिए, right? तभी आप जो है ये सब इश्यूज को मीट कर पाएंगे, राइट? जैसे मनी लॉन्ड्रिंग को प्रिवेंट करने के लिए देयर आर सो मेनी रेगुलेशंस, राइट? सो G20 विल ऑल्सो इवॉल्व सच फाइनेंशियल रेगुलेशंस और विल प्रमोट सच फाइनेंशियल रेगुलेशंस दैट विल हेल्प इन स्टेबलाइजिंग द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी. ऐसे रूल्स और रेगुलेशंस को प्रमोट करेगा G20 दैट विल रिड्यूस द रिस्क्स फॉर द ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी and promote stable growing global economy, right? So regulations को भी promote करेगा, right? and ऐसा financial architecture बनाया जाए, a global financial system has to be designed that is inclusive of needs of every person living in any country and that promotes sustainable growth, राइट? G20 का ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है? नेक्स्ट ऑब्जेक्टिव क्या है कि एक इंक्लूसिव एंड सस्टेनेबल फाइनेंशियल आर्किटेक्चर बनाया जाए, राइट? दैट इज सिक्योर ऑफ ऑल द चैलेंजेस दैट वी आर सीइंग, राइट? सो ये सब इन सब ऑब्जेक्टिव्स को अचीव करने के लिए G20 हैज कम इनटू पिक्चर, राइट? नाउ व्हाई इज G20 significant? Because G20, as I told you, is a grouping of major economies of the world, right? G20 is a grouping of major economies of the world. Just see this graph, right? You see 85% of the global GDP is represented by the countries of G20. 75% of the global trade is represented by the countries of G20 and 66% of the global population is comprised by G20, right? इन numbers का मतलब क्या है कि अगर G20 कोई फैसला लेगा और उसे implement कर पाएगा then we will be having a wider impact on the entire world because G20 has the majority population, it has the majority world GDP share also, right? So if the G20 countries are able to perform well in a coordinated fashion, then they will be able to produce remarkable results for the entire world, right? That is why G20 as a grouping is very significant because it has an ability to create a wider impact on the entire world. It constitutes major economies, it constitutes large part, almost 66% of the global population, right? That is why G20 is very important. Also, G20 has an agenda, as I told you, of ensuring strong, sustainable and balanced growth, right? So G20 सिर्फ ये नहीं चाहता कि ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी ग्रो हो, it wants that the growth should be sustainable, that means environmentally sound, right? Economies grow ho but they should keep in mind the environmental objectives of the world, right? क्योंकि अगर हम environment को ध्यान में नहीं रखेंगे that means we will be pushing climate change, and if we are pushing climate change that means we are threatening global economy, global economic system, right? And G20 का objective है इसको secure करना, right? So the growth that G20 will promote, that will be sustainable growth, right? And secondly, it will always support balanced or inclusive growth. No one should be left out of the growth process, right? because if some sections of the society do not get the fruits of growth, that means the inequality in the world will rise. Some people will be very rich, some people will be very poor, right? And it has a lot of impact on the world economy. Just listen to it carefully, how inequalities impact the global system, global economic system. Why do we focus on inclusive growth? हमेशा आप हर एजेंडा में देखिए, इवन इंडियाज 12th 5-year प्लान हम फॉलो नहीं करते हैं, बट अगर आप 12th 5-year प्लान की हेडिंग ही पढ़ेंगे, दैट फोकस इज ऑन सस्टेनेबल एंड इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ, राइट? सो व्हाई इंक्लूसिविटी इज, व्हाई इंक्लूसिव ग्रोथ, व्हाई इंडिया, व्हाई G20 focuses on inclusive growth, right? Because if inclusive growth is not there, that means there will be people who are very rich, there will be people who are very poor, right? Income inequality will rise, right? Now when these people are poor, these people are rich and they are producing most of the products for the economy, right? अब देखिए रिच लोग हैं जो you can say the business people, the employers, what they are doing, they are creating products for the society, right? Now if they are rich, who will buy their products? The rest of the population. Now if the rest of the population is poor, do you think that there will be buyers for the products that rich are creating, right? जैसे आप अंबानी एग्जाम्पल, जस्ट अ रफ एग्जाम्पल, अंबानी द रिचेस्ट मैन ऑफ इंडिया, दैट इज वाई वी आर टेकिंग इट, एवरीवन नोज अबाउट हिम. नाउ ही हैज लॉन्च्ड जियो फोन्स, लेट्स से, राइट? नाउ इफ द पॉपुलेशन ऑफ इंडिया वर टू बी वेरी वेरी पुअर, लेट्स से ओनली कुछ लोग हैं, 100 लोग हैं जो बहुत अमीर है इंडिया में, बाकी लोग बहुत ही गरीब हैं, इतने गरीब कि वो 2 वक्त का खाना भी नहीं खा सकते, दे कैन नॉट अफोर्ड टू ईट ट्वाइस अ डे, राइट? So now how will they buy the product that Jio wants to sell? That means the economic system is getting impacted. Economy needs buyers, right? Buyers ही नहीं होंगे तो system कैसे work करेगा? That is why if inequality grows, inequality is unhealthy for any economy. That is the first reason, missing buyers. Second reason is crime rate. The more poverty, the more inequality, the more deprivation that is there in an economy, that means people will be more inclined towards criminal activities because they do not have the basic living requirements. ठीक है, इसका most prominent example है, if you have read the story of South Africa, especially Cape Town, right? South Africa में see there is a lot of high inequality, there are people who are extremely rich, right? And there is another set of people that are extremely poor, right? So अब उनके पास job नहीं है, education नहीं है, they do not have a basic living requirements. What will they do? They will steal from this section whom they see enjoying all the luxuries of the life, right? So that is why the crime rate there is very very dangerous levels, especially at the night times, right? So ये crimes जो हैं, these crimes can be small petty thefts, or these crimes can be serious crimes like trafficking, like terrorism, like drug trade, human trade, right? अब जब मजबूरी में इंसान किसी भी लेवल तक जा सकता है, as they say. Somali pirates, why are they pirates? Because they do not have basic living needs. The poverty levels are very very high in Somalia, right? So इसी वजह से अगर inequality होगी, crime rate बढ़ेगा, and wherever there is criminal activity, the economy suffers, right? Any kind of instability in the society impacts the economic system. श्रीलंका देख लीजिए आप, कश्मीर देख लीजिए इंडिया का, right? Why are these areas not growing much? Because they are not stable, they have social conditions which are led by violence, right? So that is why the economy won't grow. इसी वजह से inclusive growth G20 का main agenda बन जाता है. That is why inclusive growth is also a main agenda of G20, because growth cannot go for a longer period of time until and unless it is inclusive. जब तक आप सबको साथ में नहीं लेके चलते तब तक ग्रोथ सस्टेन नहीं कर पाएगी. किसी ना किसी दिन ये जो थ्रेट्स हैं, the threat of buyers not being there, the threat of crime rate rising, they will restrict the growth of the economy any further after some point, right? So that is why G20 focuses a lot on a growth that is strong yet sustainable and inclusive. That is why also G20 is very significant forum for the entire world, right? It provides representation to the emerging economies, right? It holds large impact on the entire world as it encompasses 85% of the world GDP and 66% of the world population, right? And also it focuses on strong, sustainable, balanced growth, and that is why G20 becomes a very, very important forum for the entire world, right? It provides a strong platform for cooperation on important aspects of international economic and financial agenda, right? So that is why G20 has gained a lot of importance in current times, especially this year, इस साल के एग्ज़ाम्स के लिए and next year के एग्ज़ाम्स के लिए G20 is very important for you. Next year India will be leading the presidency, holding the presidency of G20. तो ये कुछ points आप अपने पास लिख के रखिए. These will be very important for you, right? Now let's just cover another aspect about G20, that is the organizational structure, right? So organizational structure कैसा है? देखिए, firstly it does not have any permanent secretariat, राइट? सेक्रेटेरिएट का क्या मतलब है? एक परमानेंट बिल्डिंग हो जो हेडक्वार्टर्स कहें हम जिसे G20 का. देयर इज स्टाफ दैट इज रेगुलरली ईयर लॉन्ग वर्किंग फॉर G20 एजेंडा, राइट? सच परमानेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट इज नॉट देयर फॉर G20. ठीक है, ये बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट पॉइंट है. MCQs में इसी पॉइंट से एक स्टेटमेंट बन सकती है. सो कीप दिस इन माइंड, देयर इज नो परमानेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट ऑफ G20, राइट? That is the first feature of its organizational structure. Every year the presidency rotates. जितने भी members हैं G20, the 20 members, amongst them the presidency keeps rotating every year. इस साल इंडिया member है, next year कोई और country in 20 में से member president होगी G20 की, and they will host that summit in their country. ठीक है, सो परमानेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट तो नहीं है, बट जो प्रेसिडेंट है दे विल होस्ट द समिट इन देयर ओन कंट्री, राइट? नाउ G20 हैज़ अ ट्रायोका. ये भी MCQ में बन सकता है. ट्रायोका क्या होता है, राइट? ट्रायोका इज द मैनेजमेंट ग्रुप ऑफ G20 which comprises of the past, the present and the upcoming member or future of G20, right? अब जैसे हम 2023 के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में देखें, इंडिया विल होल्ड द प्रेसिडेंसी इन 2023, राइट? तो प्रेजेंट मेंबर तब कौन होगा? इंडिया विल बी द प्रेजेंट ऑफ G20. पास्ट क्या होगा? जो 2022 में मेंबर है, दैट मीन्स इंडोनेशिया इस साल का जो प्रेसिडेंट है, राइट? एंड अपकमिंग फ्यूचर में कौन सा होगा 2024 का? दैट इज ब्राज़ील. नेक्स्ट ईयर प्रेसिडेंसी जानी है बस ब्राज़ील के पास. नाउ दीज 3 कंट्रीज फॉर्म द ट्रायोका ऑफ G20. द पास्ट, द प्रेजेंट, द फ्यूचर ऑफ G20's मैनेजमेंट. ठीक है, मैंने आपको कहा जो कंट्री प्रेसिडेंसी होल्ड करती है दैट हाउसेस द समिट्स, दैट होस्ट्स द समिट्स ऑफ G20, राइट? सो ये मैनेजमेंट संभालने के लिए इन 3 कंट्रीज के बीच में कोऑर्डिनेशन बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, एंड दैट इज व्हाई दे आर नोन एज द ट्रायोका ऑफ G20, राइट? देन फाइनली before G20 summits take place, there are Sherpa and financial tracks that happen, right? दो टाइप की मीटिंग्स होती हैं, Sherpa tracks and financial tracks. As you can know from the name, financial tracks will focus on all the financial issues, and Sherpa track will focus on non so direct financial issues, right? जैसे climate change वगैरह, they impact the economy, but they are non financial issues. So Sherpa level पे उस तरीके की talks होती हैं. When these people, these ministers in these Sherpa talks, secretaries in these talks, they sit and come out with some issues and solutions, they are then carry forward, they are taken ahead at the summit level, जहाँ पे head of the states यानी कि आपके prime minister, president, they will sit together and talk about those issues further. ठीक है, so आप देखिए G20 का ऑर्गेनाइजेशनल स्ट्रक्चर भी आप देखेंगे. देयर विल बी ट्रायोका, देयर विल बी शेरपा एंड फाइनेंशियल ट्रैक्स हैपनिंग. फाइनेंशियल ट्रैक्स में आपके फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर्स एंड बैंकिंग एजेंसीज के हेड, दे विल बी सिटिंग टुगेदर, राइट? राइट, एंड here in Sherpa track, right, this is a name that is given to the conversation, the discussions that are happening on non-financial talks. ठीक है, Sherpa is nothing but जब आप trekking वगैरह if you are involved in, can you tell me anyone who has gone to trekking, they will know who are Sherpas. Can anyone tell me what do you understand by Sherpas? So it is nothing but Sherpa track होता है जो आपके they lay the groundwork for the leaders, the prime ministers and the presidents to interact upon, right? इसीलिए इसे Sherpa कहा गया है. आप tracking वगैरह में देखेंगे, there also you are you also see Sherpas assisting you climb the mountains. So उस तरीके से Sherpa level track भी होता है इसमें, and financial track is there. So ज़्यादा डिटेल में जाने की ज़रूरत नहीं है, जस्ट हैव अ बेसिक आइडिया. नो परमानेंट सेक्रेटेरिएट, एनुअल रोटेशन ऑफ प्रेसिडेंसी, देयर इज ट्रायोका ऑफ मैनेजमेंट, एंड देयर आर टू टाइप्स ऑफ meetings and discussions that happen before the summit. The two types are Sherpa track and financial track, right? यहाँ पे नॉन फाइनेंशियल मैटर्स विल बी डिस्कस्ड, एंड फाइनेंशियल मैटर्स के लिए फाइनेंस मिनिस्टर्स, central bank के officials, they all will sit together and discuss the banking related financial matters in these discussions. ठीक है, direct finance से related issues will be discussed here, right? That is what is all about the organizational structure of G20, right? Now the most important aspect is the G20 summit 2022 that is currently being held in Bali this year, Indonesia, right? अब इसके outcomes क्या हैं, right? Basically this year the biggest threat to the global economic system is the Russia-Ukraine war. Russia-Ukraine war that is there, it is impacting the global economy. आपने श्रीलंका का भी हाल देखा है, what has happened to Sri Lanka. One reason is Russia-Ukraine war. Obviously कोविड ने बहुत इम्पैक्ट किया है, नॉट जस्ट रशिया यूक्रेन वॉर, कोविड-19 इज ऑल्सो एन एजेंडा. इनकी वजह से ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी पे बहुत इम्पैक्ट हुआ है. ग्लोबल फूड सिक्योरिटी हैज़ बीन इम्पैक्टेड बिकॉज फूड ग्रेन्स आर नॉट रीचिंग द टारगेटेड पॉपुलेशंस. These Russia and Ukraine, they are the, you can say, bread ball of a large part of the world. And now grains, wheat grains especially, are not reaching the required population, so food security is getting endangered, right? They are disrupting the supply chains. The war has disrupted the supply chains, right? So इसी वजह से you see this year the leaders at G20, they have condemned the war, they have criticized the war that is going on. That is why you see the member states said the Ukraine war is causing economic difficulties and insecurity worldwide, and the threat that Russia is giving of nuclear weapons, that is even more threatening. ठीक है, वॉर तो चल ही रही है, अगर न्यूक्लियर वॉर हो गई तो ग्लोबल इकोनॉमीज विल बी शैटर्ड, right? So that is why the G20 countries, they have criticized the war a lot, right? They say that we need to find a solution to this war as early as possible, or it will impact the economies in a very serious manner, right? So that is what has been the outcome of G20, right? So on food security also, G20 has said that we need to ensure food security to all the world population. They have appreciated the Black Sea Grains Initiative. ठीक है, Black Sea Grains Initiative again a very important initiative, आपको MCQs में पूछा जा सकता है. So if you have seen the Russia-Ukraine situation, major area of conflict is Black Sea. I hope आप maps वगैरह देख रहे हैं. Just open your map right now if you can. Just see कि Russia-Ukraine, you see Russia-Ukraine war is happening, and here the major water body that is under concern is the Black Sea. Now this Black Sea carries major grains of the world, right? यहाँ से ही move होते हैं, you can say, to different parts of the world. Now because of the war, these supply chains have been impacted. So अब world powers, they have sat with Russia and they came out with the Black Sea Grains Initiative, in which it was agreed that Russia will not restrict the movement of various grain containing shipments through the Black Sea. ठीक है, ऐसा नहीं होगा कि रशिया बम्बार्डिंग करेगा इन शिप्स की दैट आर कैरिंग ग्रेन्स टू द रेस्ट ऑफ द वर्ल्ड. सो वो ब्लैक सी ग्रेन इनिशिएटिव को G20 ने भी सपोर्ट किया है, राइट? दिस डिड नॉट टेक प्लेस इन G20. ठीक है, ये भी याद रखना है. ब्लैक सी ग्रेन्स इनिशिएटिव G20 के बाहर साइन हुआ है रशिया के साथ, राइट? मेजर वर्ल्ड कंट्रीज ने मिलके साइन किया है. So now G20 is just supporting that initiative, right? ये अपने पास लिख के रखिए, बहुत important initiative है. Now again climate change पे भी COP27 is also going on. If you are following the news regularly, very important another event that is going on in the world, right? COP27 is going on. There the world is trying to commit, the countries are trying to commit towards a safer climate situation, and there also G20 has said that we will focus on preventing the temperature rise beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, because beyond this the global economies will see huge impact on their productivity, on their efficiency, right? So again climate change पे भी G20 ने ये commitment दी है to prevent rise of global temperatures beyond 1.5 degrees Celsius, to commit with their nationally determined contributions NDCs as they made in the Paris Agreement. ये सब आपको environment के section में आपके cover होगा, थोड़ा आप जाके पढ़ सकते हैं अपनी basic books में about the NDCs, right? So ये थोड़ी situation समझ आ जाएगी, right? So that is about it. And G20 is also significant. This year's summit is also significant because the presidency has been transferred to India. This picture shows that India will be the next president of G20, a very significant development for India. India has also launched a logo in response to this. The title is One Earth, One Family, One Future. राइट, ये पूछा जा सकता है फिर से ऑब्जेक्टिव टाइप में, तो इसीलिए इसे याद रखिए. वन अर्थ, वन फैमिली, वन फ्यूचर, right? This is the logo. Question can be asked on any aspect of this logo, the color, the photos, the title. So you have to remember all of this. Vasudeva Kutumbakam, the entire world is our family. So that is why India's logo is one earth, one family, one future. We all have to cooperate to save our common future. ठीक है, तो ये भी याद रखिए. Now, why is this 2023 और इंडिया को प्रेसिडेंसी मिलना, why is it significant? Right? Why is it significant? Because India can focus on raising major issues that is impacting it, right? ग्लोबल इकोनॉमी जो स्लो हो रही है उस पर बातचीत की जाए. कोविड की वजह से पॉवर्टी जो इंक्रीज हो रही है उस पर इंडिया फोकस करेगा. क्लाइमेट चेंज जो हमारी इकोनॉमीज़ को इम्पैक्ट करेगा, इंडिया उस पर फोकस करने की कोशिश करेगा. एंड द वर्ल्ड इंटरनेशनल इंस्टीट्यूशंस दैट आर still biased towards the west, they need reform, right? That is all the agenda that India will try to take forward when it gets the presidency of G20 in 2023, right? So इसी वजह से ये presidency इंडिया के लिए बहुत ही मायने रखती है, right? So that was all about G20. Most of the important aspects we have covered, right? आप ये जितना भी हमने डिस्कस किया है, जस्ट ट्राई टू मेक नोट्स आउट ऑफ दिस. ये आप डायग्राम प्लीज़ बना लीजिए वेन एवर देर इज़ अ क्वेश्चन. अगर सब्जेक्टिव क्वेश्चन G20 पे आता भी है, ट्राई टू मेक दिस डायग्राम ईजी डायग्राम. कुछ ज़्यादा है नहीं है इसमें, बट इट विल फेच यू मोर मार्क्स. बेसिक मेंबरशिप याद रखिए आप, G20 19 कंट्रीज प्लस 1 मेंबर, उसके बेसिक ऑब्जेक्टिव्स क्या हैं एंड इसका सिग्निफिकेंस दैट वी हैव डिस्कस्ड, राइट? द सिग्निफिकेंस. इसी से आप ये पॉइंट्स अगर आप किसी आंसर में मेंशन करके आएंगे, यू विल गेट गुड मार्क्स इर्रिस्पेक्टिव ऑफ द अदर डिटेल्स ऑफ द क्वेश्चन. ये बेसिक डिटेल्स अगर आप लिख पाते हैं, दैट विल बी यूजफुल फॉर यू, राइट? नाउ द नेक्स्ट टॉपिक फॉर टुडेज डिस्कशन, इलीगल अनरिपोर्टेड अनरेगुलेटेड फिशिंग, राइट? अब आई विल नॉट गो इनटू द डिटेल्स ऑफ दिस कॉन्सेप्ट. दिस कॉन्सेप्ट यू विल रीड इन योर इन्वायरमेंट पार्ट, या आप थोड़ा देख लीजिए, कुछ ज़्यादा नहीं है. इलीगल फिशिंग अनरिपोर्टेड, दैट इज़ गोइंग अनरिपोर्टेड एंड दैट डज नॉट फॉलो द रेगुलेशंस ऑफ द सी, राइट? अब इससे क्या हो रहा है? सो नाउ यू सी दीज न्यूज़ आर्टिकल्स, दे आर सेइंग दैट ओवर द पास्ट फ्यू ईयर्स द illegal fishing that is rising in Indo-Pacific region, right? You see the data here. So now we have seen, अगर आप कंपैरिजन करें, राइट? 2021 देखें, 2020 देखें, 379 और यू कैन से 380, राउंड ऑफ कर लेते हैं फॉर ईजियर रिमेम्बरेंस. यू कैन राउंड ऑफ द फिगर्स, इतनी कोई इशू नहीं है. एंड नाउ 390 के अराउंड. सो द नंबर ऑफ incidents of illegal fishing and unreported fishing is rising in Indo-Pacific, and the major concern is China, because almost 80 to 90% of illegal unreported unregulated fishing that is happening from China, right? बाकी countries भी involved हैं, but China is a major threat that is emerging. Why China is emerging such a big threat? Because China is a large economy, they are able to subsidize their fishermen. So the Chinese fishermen, they have latest technology boats who have advanced trawlers, who have advanced technology. So इस वजह से क्या हो रहा है, वो अपने एरिया में फिशिंग कैच जो है डिक्लाइन करते जा रहे हैं, बिकॉज दे आर फिशिंग इन एन अनसस्टेनेबल मैनर. एंड नाउ व्हेन द एरिया अराउंड देम इज लूजिंग द फिशरी रिसोर्सेज, दे आर मूविंग बियॉन्ड देयर टेरिटरीज towards the other parts of Indian Ocean. ठीक है, तो अपने साउथ चाइना सी में या आप कहें ईस्ट चाइना सी में, दे हैव एग्जॉस्टेड द फिशरी कैच. Now they are moving toward other areas in the Indian Ocean, impacting the fishermen in other areas. Indian Ocean में इंडिया के फिशरमैन, श्रीलंका के फिशरमैन, पाकिस्तान के फिशरमैन, राइट, अफ्रीकन कोस्ट में अफ्रीकन कंट्रीज के फिशरमैन, all of them will be impacted when China does illegal high technology supported fishing. Right, and we have seen that over the years the Chinese illegal fishing has increased. Right, so this is a major threat to the livelihood of the fishermen. Right, इससे क्या क्या concern arise होते हैं, जो ये farmers, the fishermen sorry of these areas of Indian state, of Sri Lanka, of Pakistan, of any country that you can think of in this region that is involved in fishing. सबसे पहले the livelihood of the fishermen will get impacted, right? So now when Chinese fishermen, they will keep extracting the fish from your area, from where will your fishermen then extract the fish, right? So वही बात है. So the livelihoods of our fishermen will impacted, the food that they are getting from the catch, from the fish catch, that will be impacted. That means इनकी food security will also be impacted, right? जब इनको fish नहीं मिलेगी तो खुद भी खा नहीं पाएंगे. They depend on their fishery activity for their own food, for their own nutrition also. This fishery is responsible for 20% of the average animal protein intake for 3.3 billion people, right? ये सिर्फ फूड का सोर्स ही नहीं है, दिस इज सोर्स ऑफ मेजर न्यूट्रिएंट्स और प्रोटीन्स फॉर अ लार्ज सेक्शन ऑफ पॉपुलेशन. सो द न्यूट्रिशन सिक्योरिटी ऑफ दिस पॉपुलेशन विल ऑल्सो बी इम्पैक्टेड, राइट? सो दैट इज वाई this illegal fishing that is rising is very important issue. ये सिर्फ marine ecology को impact नहीं करता, but it impacts the livelihood of the fisherman, it impacts the food security of the fisherman, it impacts the nutritional security of the fisherman, right? Also when this fisherman does not have the livelihood opportunities, what will happen? जब उनके पास खाना नहीं है, पैसा नहीं है, तो क्या होगा? As we discussed some time back, the crime rate will increase, right? Like I gave you the example of Somalia, a very poor country, they are not able to survive even with the fishery. So what they are doing now, they are involved in piracy, in looting other ships that are coming near their coasts, right? So that is why when these impacts happen, they lead to bigger security issues, that is human trafficking, drug crime, terror recruiting, राइट? जब लोगों को खाना नहीं मिलेगा तो टेररिज्म में जाएंगे. टेररिस्ट ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस आर वेरी वेल पेयर्स. आप वहाँ जाएंगे, आपको सैलरी तो इनिशियली बड़ी मिलती है, बट लार्जर इम्पैक्ट्स आर देयर, राइट? सो टेरर रिक्रूटिंग विल इंक्रीज, drug trade will increase. When you do not have money, you will sell even drugs because you need basic living requirements, right? It can also lead to human trafficking. आपको जॉब के लालच में कहीं भी लेके जाया जाएगा, right? And that is what results ultimately in human trafficking, right? So this illegal, unsustainable, unreported fishing that is increasing from the Chinese side, it has such number of impacts on the rest of the population of Indian Ocean and African countries, right? So अब इन सब impacts को prevent करने के लिए, to counter check Chinese activity, the major grouping that is Quad has come out with a solution, right? अभी तक आपको समझ आया? We are discussing the illegal, unregulated, unreported fishing that is happening in Indian Ocean. Majority of this, that is 80 to 90% of this is happening from the Chinese fishermen, right? And this is impacting the livelihoods, the food security, the nutritional security, and bigger security threats it is raising, right? And that is why Quad has come up with this, Quad is trying to come up with a maritime surveillance initiative to track the illegal unreported fishing. ठीक है, चाइना की तरफ से जो इलीगल फिशिंग होगी उसको मॉनिटर करने के लिए एक मैरीटाइम सर्विलेंस इनिशिएटिव लॉन्च किया जा रहा है क्वाड के द्वारा, राइट. सो दिस इज़ वेरी इंपॉर्टेंट टॉपिक फॉर योर इंडो पैसिफिक. अगर इंडो पैसिफिक पे कोई भी क्वेश्चन आए, डू मेक अ मेंशन ऑफ द इलीगल फिशिंग दैट हैपन्स हेयर. एंड क्वाड के कॉन्टेक्स्ट में भी अगर आपको आए वाई क्वाड इज सिग्निफिकेंट, you can always discuss this issue, that the illegal fishing that is happening is impacting the fisherman in multiple ways, and here quad can play a very important role by providing such a surveillance system, right. That is how you can use this topic, right. So that is basically about all these two important topics that I wanted to discuss. This is the question that you can practice for your answer writing provided by our team. So practice this question, and whatever doubts are there, you can post it in the comment box. We can reply to that. Thank you so much for joining.